Hey guys, hope everyone's going well. Today we're going to be talking about something that's going to help you to get fitter, faster, stronger, without having to lift any weights, without having to go for a run, go for a ride, do any exercises at home. Something that's going to really be able to step up your training that a lot of riders and racers completely ignore and actually don't spend any time on, which is a big hole in training. So we're going to be focusing on that today. So we'll wait for a few people to jump on board. Shout out if you're on board, or if you're watching at the moment, or give me a thumbs up, or post in the comments and let me know you're here. Hoping to be able to get a few people a little bit later in the afternoon. Hey Daniel, good to have you on the call. Or on the live stream. So what we're going to be talking about, how to get fitter, faster and stronger without even doing any training. Okay. And the big secret is to being able to get fitter, faster, stronger, without doing any training, without lifting the weights, without going for runs, without going riding, okay, without doing all this crazy stuff, is actually focusing on mobility and movement efficiency, okay? And this is something that I can pretty much guarantee that 99.99999% of riders and racers don't spend any time on. They're all about lifting the weights, doing the hard work, grinding, got to feel like you're sweating, got to feel like you've done a workout, when actually that's all the stuff that should come later. The first thing that you should be focusing on is always movement efficiency and being able to move efficiently and being able to have full ranges of motion to be able to do that. So most of us have mobility issues or flexibility issues, okay? So in other words, because of our sedentary lifestyle, the lifestyle we live today that our bodies aren't designed for, what that means is that we tend to get tight in certain areas. We get tight hips from sitting all the time. We get tight shoulders from being rounded forward. Hey Paul, from being rounded over on the computer all day, okay? Doing live streams. All this stuff starts to tighten up and starts to become an issue. So that's something that we need to be able to work on. So when we carry all this tightness from our day-to-day life, what happens is we develop these structural imbalances. So what that means is some parts of our body become very tight, and other parts are fairly loose. So some parts are overused, some parts are underused. So that means then when we go into training, we carry those imbalances into our training, and we start to have the same issues. Okay, except we make them a heap worse. So imagine if you've got tight hips, you've got a sore ankle or a sore knee, then we get you squatting with 50 kilos, then that's going to make the problem worse. It's going to glorify the issue that's already there. And that's something that all racers need to be able to focus on, because there's much more to be gained from movement efficiency than there is from just lifting heavy weights or just doing hard work, okay? And it's not the most exciting stuff. It's probably one of the more boring things. Foam rolling, looking at particular types of stretches, being able to create full ranges of motion. So what starts to happen when we tighten up is our shoulders, our hips, certain joints start to lose their range of motion. So think about your ankles, right? Our ankles are designed to go into full plantar flexion and dorsiflexion, which means all the way forwards, all the way back, like you've got your foot on the accelerator in the car, right? Most of us don't have full plantar flexion and full dorsiflexion. We can't physically move our ankle all the way back, all the way forward as it was designed to be done, okay? And that means when they start to tighten up, we have problems with what's called the kinetic chain, which is everything up from that. So although our ankles are the issue, we start to get knee pain now because our ankles aren't absorbing much impact. They're not allowing us to move as we need to. Our knees start to have a heap more pressure on them. Okay, when our knees start to get a heap more pressure, we start to have obviously problems with our knees. That leads to issues with our hips, because now our hips aren't working properly because our knees are continually tracking in the wrong direction. Then when that starts to happen, we have no lower body stability, so we start to get lower back pain. Okay, when we start to get lower back pain, then we start to sit in different ways while we're at the desk to try and take weight off it, which means that we start to get imbalances with our shoulders now. And then all these things are just spiraling. So we're just coming from ankles, we get a whole spiral of effects, a whole spiral of issues that start to occur, that start to come up. And then these are transferred into your training. And obviously when we're training, we're at high intensity, we're using weights, we're moving a lot more. This glorifies all those issues. So movement efficiency is the most important thing to be able to focus on. So the way we do this is being able to stretch, have the right stretches, okay? Not all stretching is created equal. It's all well and good to be able to go to a yoga class, go and do Bikram, I'll get it out eventually, okay? Or Pilates or whatever you're going to do. But if you don't know how to actually move correctly, none of that stuff's going to matter. Because if you have tight hamstrings and you go and stretch out your hamstrings at Bikram yoga for an hour, okay, and you feel awesome after that, and you don't change your movement patterns that cause them to be tight in the first place, what do you think is going to happen when you go back to training, when you go back to everyday life? They're going to tighten up again, okay? So it's not really fixing the problem, it's just a Band-Aid fix. And that's what we want to be able to get to. You want to be able to get to the underlying issues with your movement, with your training, to be able to find what that underlying issue is, because that's going to allow you to be able to have long-term success with your training. But it's also going to, number one, prevent any future injuries so we can have more consistency with our training. But number two, is going to allow you to be a shit ton stronger because you're a heap more efficient, okay? When you know how to move your body correctly, which most people don't because we didn't come with an instruction manual, okay? When you understand how to move your body correctly, you can create a shit ton more power and get a shit ton more force created with a lot less energy than you ever have before. So imagine being able to improve the efficiency in your movements with the gym or using the correct movements and then seeing that on the bike. Okay, it's not always about lifting heavier weights. It's not always about going for longer runs, going for longer rides, just doing more of stuff or working harder. Sometimes we need to work smarter and more efficiently. And this is one of those times. Being able to work on mobility, being able to work on movement, and making sure that that's a part of your program, okay? If you don't have mobility work that's included in your program and programmed like your training should be, then you're holding yourself back, okay? All your mobility work, all your flexibility work needs to be programmed as well. It's exactly the same as your training. Otherwise, you're not going to get better at it. If you just have a random routine for your stretching and go and do the old hamstring stretch and the old quad, the old foot behind foot behind your bum quad stretch, then you're holding yourself back, okay? Same as you are with your training. So you need to have a program for your training, but you need to have a program for your flexibility and mobility work as well to be able to see results with that. Otherwise, you're not going to see the progress. So the big benefits with that is that we do our flexibility and mobility work at the start of the session. Those improvements in range of motion are then brought into our training, which means we reduce the likelihood of injury in training, but we also improve the efficiency of our movement in training as well. So it's a win-win, okay? The only reason that most racers don't do it is because it's boring as shit. But that's the difference between the racers who are successful and the ones who aren't, okay? Sometimes you got to do the stuff that's boring, that's not exciting, when you'd rather be doing other stuff. Sometimes you just got to get in there and put in the work, do the stuff that you don't like doing. And stretching your mobility is one of those areas. So that's what you guys, that's what I just wanted to talk about today, is a little bit the flexibility and mobility side of things. Not something I've spent too much time on, but that also correlates over to work as well. We don't spend all our time in the gym, right? Most of you will have jobs. You're working full time, okay? Working most of the hours. A lot of you in construction as well, even FIFO, working massive hours. So you're in the gym, right, for a couple of hours. Let's just say max. Let's just say you have a heap of time with a full-time job and you train 3 hours a day, okay? There's still 21 hours of the day that you're doing other stuff. To be able to improve your mobility, flexibility, posture, and movement, and your efficiency, you need to be able to practice all day, every day. So we need to maximize those other 21 hours. So if you've got a desk job, right, and you're sitting down, practice sitting up straight. Practice keeping your core tight. Practice keeping your shoulders pulled back and down. Work on keeping everything active and tight like you would if you were at training, because you're going to get far more benefit from maximizing those 21 hours than you are from just maximizing the 3 hours of training. Okay, and I know for most of you, that training time is going to be much shorter than 3 hours. So it's all about being able to maximize the time outside of training, because that's where we're going to get a shit ton of benefit in terms of posture and movement. That's where the real results are in efficiency. And then we just get the finishing touches when we're in training, okay? Rather than trying to correct our movements for the 3 hours of training and then letting it go for the other 21 hours. It's going to hold you back a shit ton over the long term. So practicing simply sitting and standing. If you go back on my YouTube channel, so youtube.com/drivenAthleteTraining, there's a heap of, when I used to do a heap of rehab work, heaps of mobility and stretching and flexibility work videos. If you go back, scroll back through a few of the videos, there's a heap of stuff in there that'll be able to get you started. So if you're in trades, okay, let's just say you're a scaffolder. So we work with David here in Perth. He's a scaffolder, or does scaffolding work, or form work, okay? Picking up heavy shit all day. That is the ideal job for training, the ideal job. Because every time you pick something up off the floor, every time you put something overhead, you use all the principles you've learnt with training. So that's overhead pressing, that's deadlifting, that's squatting. All those things that you do during training, you're now doing during work. So imagine if you had another, let's just say you've got 21 hours left, you have 8 hours of that sleeping, which will leave you with 13 hours left. Imagine having an extra 13 hours of training time every single day for the rest of the year. Okay, every single work day. You're getting paid to train. It doesn't get much better than that, okay? But you just got to put the time in. You got to try and work on your movement as much as possible. Back in the day when I used to work at Mitre 10, I used to go and pack shelves, put stuff, stock the shelves up, moving around. Okay, some of the shelves were really low, some of the shelves were really high. They were some of the areas that I worked on. So I could practice my squat, sitting at the bottom of the squat, making sure my core was tight, knees were out, feet were straight. Okay, when I put stuff overhead, I could work on keeping everything tight, keeping my core tight, keeping everything nice and straight. Okay, using my legs to generate the power overhead, taking the weight out of my back. Okay, there's so many areas that you can work on in terms of movement efficiency during work time. It doesn't even have to be during training time. Okay, and that's where the real results are. Because imagine if you had 13 hours, right, of training time that you were getting paid for. Okay, most people don't maximize that time. They don't use it. They only use their training time as their time to be able to help them on the bike. They don't use the other 13 hours that they have left over to be able to help them. And that's where we can get a shit ton of results. No, it may not be as effective as training in terms of lifting weights, but what it does do is set you up better in terms of flexibility, mobility, and movement by putting you in the right posture, having correct positions, and having practiced that all day. When you've done that for 13 hours, it's going to be easy when you go to the gym for 3 hours. If you've done that for a whole week, that's a shit ton of time. Okay, that'll be over 100 hours. It's like 150 hours. Okay, or 130 hours, whatever the maths is. I haven't added up. So that's something that's going to help you a shit ton. Okay, by putting in the time. You're not doing anything extra. You're just doing what you're currently doing, just doing it better. Okay. So that's something for you guys to work on. Go and have a look at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/drivenAthleteTraining. Scroll back to the old videos. Look at the posture videos. Yes, they're fucking boring. Okay. No, not many people watch them because it's boring. But just because it's boring, it doesn't mean it's important. Okay. Sometimes we have to do the boring stuff. Sometimes we have to do the stuff that we don't want to do to be able to get better. And that's what's going to separate you from everyone else. All the other guys that are not doing it because it's boring or it's silly or it looks funny. They're not going to be doing it, and when you do it, that's going to give you the edge on everyone else. So I hope you had a great day, guys. Hope you found this insightful. Any questions, post them up below. If you liked it, give me a like. Otherwise, we'll speak to you guys tomorrow. Remember, train hard, race harder. See you guys.